Hey guys, welcome back to That Florida Feeling. How are you guys today? I hope everybody's had a good week. Hope everybody's had a fun week. Thank you so much for everybody who interacted, liked, followed, shared with the Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. I am overwhelmed, you guys. I have so many new likes and followers on the Facebook group and page. So thank you. You guys are awesome. Also, thank you to everybody who interacted with me with my Universal videos. You guys are so much fun. I hope you guys enjoyed those. Shout out to Tiffany, amazing, awesome friend, for letting me go to Universal the other day. I really appreciated it. But yeah, it was something fun to do, and it was, decorated for Christmas and playing Christmas music, even if it was like 80 outside. But that's December in Florida. So that was kind of fun. But thank you to everybody who liked those videos and interacted with me on them. I appreciate it. 5-star reviews, guys, are always appreciated. It really helps out the podcast. I've kind of learned that word of mouth is the best way to get people to listen. People, you tend to listen to what people tell you more than seeing an ad on Facebook or Twitter. So any help with that is appreciated. Thank you for everybody who's listened so far. You guys are amazing. I saw the Spotify sorry, that's Butterfinger. He might be saying hi in a second. The Spotify Wrapped for the year. Florida on Foot, that's awesome that I am one of your top podcasts. I truly appreciate it. And everybody else who made this first year a really big success. You guys are just awesome. Thank you so much. I didn't expect this to take off like this, so thank you so much. Oh, there's Butterfinger. He's telling you how much he loves Florida right now. Yes, you might hear a cat right now. I'm sorry. We're transitioning to some new things in my household, so the cats are a little talkative today. But today, let's talk about something fun. Let's talk about what really sets Florida apart from other states, and that's the Florida Keys. And I think I told you guys that at the end of my last Friendsgiving episode, which, by the way, I want to say sorry. I did not let everybody know that I was putting it out on Wednesday instead of Friday. Totally on me. Super sorry about that confusion. But it was really fun to have two friends on and talk about what we like or disliked about Florida. Hope you guys got some useful information out of that instead of us just, complaining every now and then. But let's talk about those Florida Keys. Now, the Florida Keys really are beautiful, and it really does set Florida apart. It's a really great place. People love it. You can go on vacation down there. You can take in nature. You can just find solace from the busy sunshine state that Florida can be. And it does offer something for everybody. There's resorts, campgrounds, recreation, sightseeing, really something for everybody to enjoy. Because I know sometimes people go on trips as a family and not everybody's into the same thing. But the Florida Keys really do kind of have something for everybody. They do sit at the southernmost part of the continental U.S. and the southernmost part of Florida. Now, what are the Keys? The Keys are a Coral Cay archipelago. I probably didn't say that, whatever. It's a chain of islands. And it begins about 15 miles south of Miami that form an arc to extend to Key West. Key West is not the furthest most key, but it is the furthest most inhabited key. Well, Butterfinger, what do you want to tell them? Was that telling everybody to have a good week? I really hope it was. Sorry, guys. So Key West is the furthest most key, but it's not the furthest most key, but it's the most inhabited, or the furthest most inhabited one. The Keys actually go all the way to the Dry Tortugas, and the Keys sit along Florida Straits that divide with the Atlantic on the east, the Gulf of Mexico to the northwest, and the Florida Bay on kind of around it. Now, the cool thing about Key West, though, is... Well, Butterfinger, do you want to do the podcast? I'm sorry, guys. Key West is only 90 miles from Cuba, and it lies mostly... Well, not just the Key West, but all the Keys lie mostly in Monroe County in Florida. Key West is actually the county seat of Monroe County. There is a small part in the Miami-Dade County, very top part. And the actual land area for the Keys, though, is only 137 square miles. There's a lot of islands. It's actually 1,700 small islands, and I thought it was going to be a lot more square miles, but it is only 137. That just seems, I don't know. I just thought there'd be more. I also kind of thought there'd be less. I don't know. It just didn't sound right to me. But so these 1,700 islands are grouped together in 5 main groups that make up the Keys. The islands are connected by about 42 bridges, and it's made up of the Overseas Highway, or US 1. That's what connects from just south of Homestead all the way down to the Key West. The islands do begin at the tip of the Florida Peninsula, and they do extend in a arc all the way down. They are divided into the 5 regions. We are going to talk about the 5 regions, but the regions are Key Largo, Islamorada, Marathon, Big Pine, and the Lower Keys, and then, of course, ending it with Key West. Who could forget about Key West? Now, the reason that these are kind of broken up is really cool. It just kind of depends on how you look at it, but it also kind of gives you an idea of which keys are known for which things, because each region of the Keys really does have a different type of experience. So we will talk about that, but talking about the Keys, let's talk about what we know about the Keys. So, do they have a long history? Absolutely. They were originally inhabited by the Calusa and Tequesta tribes. They were first charted, though, by Juan Ponce de Leon in 1513 as he sailed around. And de Leon originally named them Los Martires, or the Martyrs. And that's because he thought that they looked like martyrs from a distance. I don't get it? Whatever. Now, they gave the name Key from the Spanish word Cayo, which actually means small island, so it kind of fits for the Keys. Key West is the largest island that they knew of, and it was actually the largest city in Florida at that time due to salvaging from shipwrecks, salvaging people, pirates, outpost. Key West kind of was really its own little lawless territory that really kind of made a stop for people, especially for that outpost, because it was between, if you're going to Cuba or you're going to the Bahamas from New Orleans or other parts of the world, Key West was really kind of that central place where people could stop, could get their supplies, get off the boat and say, I don't want to do this anymore. I mean, there's a lot of different reasons why Key West really worked, but just being its central location was the main thing. And of course, we know there were pirates. We talked about pirates in one of the last episodes. Lots of pirates in Key West, actually. And, of course, the Keys grew as more people started to learn about them. And Key West actually declined, though, as that outpost due to things like lighthouses, better compasses, better maps, better techniques. And it kind of led to fewer shipwrecks. Of course, the Keys still got shipwrecks due to hurricanes, because that's a thing in Florida. But the outpost part of Key West really kind of started to decline as more people learned about the Keys and started to go to the other parts. So, what made the Keys really happen? Because they really are only accessible by water if you don't have things like bridges, railroads. You've got to have a boat. But thanks to Henry Flagler, I'm just going to call him the man that built Florida. Henry Flagler really began the boom to the Keys because he built a railroad through them. And he connected them basically to the rest of Florida and pretty much the modern world. Now, Flagler built his railroad all the way down to the Keys and completed it in the early 1900s. Now, the railroad he went literally from the top of Florida all the way down to Key West. And he did this by building overseas railroad trestles. And you can actually still see those today driving through the Keys. You can still see some just kind of standing dotted out in the middle of the water. And those were from the original railroad. And of course, the project didn't go smoothly thanks to hurricanes. Hurricanes hit in 1906, 1909, and 1910, but finally, Flagler's dream was done, and they had the railroad running all the way down, bringing tourists, new populations, modern amenities, anything that the Keys could need. That was a thing then, and it really did help change the Keys. It brought more people, it brought more buildings. It really just kind of made them grow. In general, and they grew and they changed, and then something happens. Something always happens that just kind of ruins it, and that came in the form of the 1935 Labor Day hurricane. This is a bad hurricane. Now, I know we think of Hurricane Andrew, we think of Irma, Charlie, all the ones that hit in the past 20 to 30 years, but this one was a beast of a hurricane. It actually was the strongest to hit the U.S. at that time, and possibly still today. I don't think Irma was gusting. This one gusted around 200 miles per hour. I don't think Andrew might have been that strong. I don't think Irma was. But it hit, and not only did it hit right in the Keys. It hit near Islamorada. So not quite halfway, a little bit north, but you still felt the impact of it. And it hit on September 2nd, 1935. And not only did it bring winds, it brought sea and storm surges, lots of S's there, that were more than 17 and a half feet above sea level. I mean, that decimates the islands, the trees, anything that's built, easily gone. The death toll was staggering at between 400 and 600 people. And it brought tons of destruction. And it really kind of ended the 23-year run of the overseas railroad that ran the length of the Keys. I mean, it just decimated it. Bridges were gone. Tracks were gone. There's no way to get to it and from it. And that really brought another change about to the Keys. With the railroad being gone, there's people stuck in the Keys. People want to get through the Keys. You can't get things down and up. And so what are we going to do? All right, let's build a highway. So that is the same highway we have today, and that is US 1, or the Overseas Highway. And it goes the same as the railroad through the entire length of the Keys. The Overseas Railroad is 113 miles. It does go through the Keys, but it mostly only goes through the inhabited islands that make up parts of the Keys. And it was partially built on the remains of that Overseas Railroad after the railroad had been destroyed in 1935. The company was not able to rebuild it. It was an enormous amount of funds needed to fix the damage, to get it back together, to get more trains, and they sold it to the state of Florida. They sold the bridges and the roadbeds to the state of Florida, and the state of Florida decided that, hey, we can turn these into a highway. And that's exactly what they did. The Overseas Highway originally, though, was not what we think of today. Now, originally, it was built out of an idea from the Miami Motor Club. They had proposed a way to attract tourists to new fishing areas and beaches in South Florida. And thanks to this land boom that was going on in the 1920s, people knew that there was underdeveloped land in Florida. It's just desolate. There's nobody there. It's for the taking in South Florida and the Upper Keys. And so they really wanted to get this idea started. Thanks to Henry Flagler's railroad, it showed that it really was feasible for a highway to be built since he built the railroad. So they started construction on it. And the actual highway started as a route running from Miami to Homestead, and that was State Road 4A, and it officially opened on January 25th, 1928. Now, the original road extended in two different parts. The first being from mainland Florida, which is the Miami Homestead, all the way down to Key Largo, and then all the way down to Matecumbe Key. And then they built a second part, which was from No Name Key to Key West. Now, those don't exactly meet in the middle. All right, there was no road in the middle. So what did they do? They had a ferry service. And the ferry service connected that 41-mile gap between the two sections that allowed people to get from one side of the state road to the other. And the original road did actually run alongside the Overseas Railroad in the Upper Keys, but then when it got to the Lower Keys, they kind of made their own path, which took it on islands that weren't quite inhabited right then, which kind of brought more people to the islands, or to the Keys. And this became so popular. It became so popular that the ferry service became quickly overrun with business and was unable to keep up with the demand. And the state realized that they needed to probably make a more efficient way for people to start traveling through the Keys. Of course, money doesn't come out of nowhere, so they got their funding boost after World War I when the New Deal by President Roosevelt was signed. And that's where hundreds of veterans were employed for construction of new railroads and bridges, not just in Florida, but a lot of them were in Florida. And the work was underway, and it was also underway when the 1935 hurricane hit. This hurricane, of course, I told you the death toll was staggering, and a lot of those were the veterans and their families that were in the area for construction. The deaths actually caused a lot of anger and charges of mismanagement, simply because a lot of the veterans were working on the bridge to get an early payment from their pensions from World War I. So, I don't know how you feel about any of that. You may not even have a feeling on it, but to me it's just really sad that instead of paying these people, you asked them to go to work and then they didn't make it, when you could have just paid them their pension. So I do feel that probably was charges of mismanagement. Kind of makes sense to me. And there is a plaque for the veterans. I'll talk about that later, so don't think that they're forgotten. So after the hurricane, and a lot of anger died down, they did continue to build the Overseas Railroad. They purchased those damaged road beds, and really purchasing those from the railroad kind of already gave them a good foundation, and they were able to continue the Overseas Highway and drive it all the way to Key West. The railroad bridges were actually still in good condition. They just did not connect still at this time from the hurricane. So it was really easy for them to change them from railroad tracks into concrete roads, because it's still kind of a bed that they had to be on to drive over. So the road was officially opened in 1938, 3 years after that hurricane, and it ran from Miami to Key West, and it became the southern part of U.S. Route 1, which is still what it's known as today. Now, the route did have portions that were tolled, and that, of course, was just to help with the upkeep, and they did this until about 1954. And the tolls were $1 per car plus 25 cents per passenger in the car. So if you were driving by yourself, you paid $1.25 at these tolls. The tolls were located on Big Pine Key and Lower Metacombe Key. Pigeon Key also had a booth, and the really cool thing about that is that Pigeon Key is actually about the halfway point on the 7 Mile Bridge. And the 7 Mile Bridge is the longest bridge in the Keys. You still drive over it today. You can also see parts of the old 7 Mile Bridge, which we'll talk about in a minute. But that's kind of where they filmed some of the movies and things like that on. You still see a lot of people fishing near it today. It's kind of a cool little thing to drive by and just be like, oh, there's a bridge. But the bridge connects Knights Key, which is in the Marathon part of the Middle Keys, to Little Duck Key, which is in the Lower Keys. And like I said, the original bridge used to pass over Pigeon Key, and that's where all the railroad workers lived when Flagler built his railroad. The reason it's not still there today is because it was deemed so unsafe that they moved to the bridge that you continuously drive on to today. That's where I say you can still see parts of the old bridge. Now, the Keys were made accessible by the railroad and then by the highways, and it really allowed us to visit some amazing parts of the Keys that we wouldn't see until those features. And I want to talk to you about some of those different sections of the Keys, because like I said, each section of the Key kind of gives you different things to do, to see. Some are better for fishing, some are better for diving, some are better for tourists, some have better bars, things like that. And so we're just going to go in order. And the first key is Key Largo and the islands around it. Key Largo is the closest to the mainland of Florida. It is about an hour-ish from Miami, traffic not included. And it's surrounded by Florida Bay, the Atlantic Ocean, and even parts of the Everglades to the north. This key has the beautiful crystal clear waters thanks to the Gulf Stream that go around the island. And it is a popular spot for scuba diving, snorkeling, and wildlife viewing. This key is really cool because it's got a lot of nature trails and parks that you can really enjoy and explore wildlife, take beautiful pictures, see plants that are only found in that part of Florida. And of course, thanks to the crystal clear waters, it really is popular with snorkeling and diving. It is also home to the John Pennekamp Coral Reef State Park. And you're like, okay, that sounds like a cool state park. I guarantee you've seen a picture of it without realizing it. If you have ever seen the underwater statue of Christ looking up with his arms raised, that's in this park. This is the park I'm talking about. This is in Key Largo. And it was really the first underwater park in the U.S. that allowed for diving and snorkeling and free diving so that you could see the beautiful underwater views and take in the wildlife. And the park is just a really beautiful place. You can see sea turtles, sharks, barracudas, natural coral, and other wildlife. Fun fact while snorkeling, do not try to grab a barracuda. Do not. Just don't grab any fish, actually. Just don't touch them. I have a really interesting story about that I'll tell you guys on another podcast. But don't grab the fish, okay? Just don't do it. It never turns out well for you or the fish. But this park extends 3-ish miles out into the Atlantic, and it's got beautiful, crystal clear blue waters. Perfect for, really, even if you're a beginner snorkeling or a beginner dive, this is really just a great place to go because you can see so much around you. Its visibility is fantastic. And you can relax on a beach at the park. You can explore the mangroves. You can snorkel. You can dive. They even have a glass bottom boat that takes you out to see a coral reef that's really just not a couple feet, but, feet from shore. So closer than you really think it should be. And Key Largo really does have something for everyone past just this beautiful state park. They've got other parks, hiking trails, of course, the white sandy beaches. They've got resorts you can relax on, free dive, and it's really cool. This is even the one that has the underwater diving hotel on it that I talked about in my Florida roadside attractions when I first started the podcast. There's a really cool, you dive up and you come up in an underwater thing and you can spend the night. It's really, really a cool little area. Go back and listen to that podcast if you like to dive and want to go to Key Largo. Definitely check that place out. So the next section of the Keys is Islamorada. And it's another beautiful section. I mean, all the Keys are beautiful, but each have their own, really something special about them. And Islamorada is really well known for fishing. Of course, the Keys have a long history, and kind of being the main reason that Flagler was able to build his railroad was really because of the fishing industry and tourism. Winley Key is in the Islamorada section of Keys, and that's actually where Flagler was able to quarry limestone to build the overseas railroad. So even outside of fishing, these keys have great value for construction and other kind of things like that, because these are made of limestone. These are limestone islands, basically. And so you do get some good, there are some big quarries in there. And you can actually still go see where he quarried these. You can go to the Winley Key Fossil Reef Geological State Park. If anybody ever wants to name a state park, please name it a very short name. There's no need for like 9 names, but sorry, side note. And this park really lets you see the Key Largo limestone up close, and it actually has really cool fossilized corals in the limestone and ancient marine life that you can see preserved in the rocks. And it really does show off Florida's geological history. It kind of gives you an idea of, you know, this really did used to be underwater. And now it's not. And you can actually stand inside the fossil reef while you're in this park and kind of explore and see what's really happened to Florida after thousands of years of climate change. So it's very kind of an important state park for me, just because I think it's cool that you can actually walk right up to it and see these things fossilized in front of your face, and not behind a glass in a museum. You can also visit Long Key State Park, and this is kind of a cool, really cool place. This used to be a luxurious fishing resort, and it was destroyed during the Labor Day hurricane in 1935. But you can still visit this island. The island is actually named Caya Vivora, or Rattlesnake Key, due to its shape. I couldn't find if there really were rattlesnakes on this island. I really hope not. That's just crazy. So the island has a lot of trails that you can explore, and one of which has an observation tower that lets you see beautiful views of the island, all the different plants, animals that call the island home, and of course, it's an island, so you're going to see some ocean. And fishing is still super popular here, much like it was before the hurricane, almost 100 years ago, actually. So these keys are really known for fishing. I can tell you that I have been to Islamorada, and it's a really cool island. I saw a lot of people fishing and going diving around there, but I did not do that. That was not something I was into at the time. But speaking about Islamorada, it has a really unique tourist attraction, and it's called the Theater of the Sea. And, sorry guys, I'm dealing with a sinus infection. The theater is made up of lagoons and lush tropical gardens. It's actually home to dolphins, sea lions, sea turtles, tons of varieties of fish, sharks, stingrays, alligators, and of course, birds. And this theater was actually created in 1946 as a home for animals. Wow, I don't know what I wrote. Okay, as a home for animals so that people could safely interact with them. Sorry. Alright, I'm laughing at myself now. Okay, so people could see these animals up close and be safe about it, and that the animals, had a safe place to live. They were rescued. And the theater is actually one of the oldest marine mammal facilities in the world. Haha, SeaWorld. No, sorry. I know some people have a lot of strong views about SeaWorld. This is not SeaWorld. This is no way affiliated with SeaWorld. This actually looks really cool. I looked up their website. And really, this place is there to rehabilitate animals. They take in rescued animals, and they care for them, and they actually care for them, and then they release them, if possible. And they really wanted a way for people to safely interact with these animals, to show their rescue, like how they rescued them, and it's kind of a fun place for people to create, to go and visit the Keys. And actually being a tourist spot, it helps generate money to help more animals. They have really cool features like taking a boat ride around the area. They have a sandy beach that you can lay on. They have theaters where you can watch the marine life. And you can see shows about different animals. The theater has lush gardens to walk around on, a restaurant on site, and of course the Florida sunny beaches, which makes it a really cool spot and kind of a whole day experience with something for everyone. I think that's really, really cool that not only do they rehabilitate the animals, they show you how they're doing it. They kind of hold themselves accountable, and you get to go and you get to see this fun stuff, and there's things like boat rides and restaurants, and it really kind of, again, it's that family thing where not everybody may like the same thing, but this kind of has something for everybody. And that's Islamorada, which I thought was just a gorgeous place. The next part we're going to talk about, though, is my favorite. I'm sorry, yes, I do have a favorite in the Keys, and that's Marathon. Probably because I spent the most time there, but it's really just a gorgeous place, and it's just beautiful. Marathon is made up of several different islands, though. It's not just one island named Marathon, but the biggest is the most well-known, and that's because it does have the connection to the 7 Mile Bridge. And Marathon is known for its sweeping views. There are some amazing sunsets on Marathon, but also known for their $1 million homes and large resorts. The island is, in this section, really kind of has its own section because it's really, Marathon is more inhabited than some of the other islands, and that's really where you get like the $1 million homes and more inhabitant and more people, and it seems a little more busy. But it's also known for sailing because of the beautiful views. There's a huge reef diving area and snorkeling around it, which is where I go snorkeling in Marathon. And, I mean, the water's crystal clear. There are abundant wildlife. The coral is beautiful. I definitely recommend it. And there's a lot of shipwrecks in this area, so you can actually see them while you're snorkeling, diving, or free diving. But this island is also home to the Turtle Hospital and the Dolphin Research Center. Excuse me, research, not rescue. And to me, that's really cool because not only do they take care of the animals, of the marine life around their island, but it helps take care of the island in itself. Talk about my favorite, which is the Turtle Hospital. And the Turtle Hospital was founded in 1986, so it's about 35 years old. And it's there to really educate the public and to rehab injured turtles. They research sea turtles, they research their habitats, they make sure that the beaches and the waters are safer for turtles, not only in nesting, but just in general. And they actually take in turtles today to care for and rehab them, and then the goal is always to return them to the oceans. They also work closely with the University of Florida to try to find causes that hurt turtles. And one cause is they want to find a cure for fibropapilloma. And I can't believe I said that right. But fibropapilloma is a viral tumor that affects sea turtles and is infectious to the wildlife. And they want to find a cause so that they can help these gentle giants and stop this disease from hurting these beautiful animals. And this hospital has got a great reputation, and they've actually helped over 1,500 sea turtles since their founding in 1986. And you can visit them. You can actually go to the hospital and take a tour every day from 9 to 6, and you get to see their educational programs, which run throughout the day, and you might even get to feed a sea turtle. That is just so cool to me, because sea turtles are so beautiful, and they're so big. Like, you don't realize how big these things are until you see one up close. I remember seeing one in Fort Walton Beach on Okaloosa Island. We were on the pier, we looked down, and this massive sea turtle, I guess she had just laid her eggs, was swimming back out in the ocean, and it was just massive. And so to be able to see one up close, especially at a rehab hospital, is just so cool because you get to learn about them, you get to understand them, and you actually get to see one. Because sea turtles can be a little bit elusive. Let's just be honest. But no, I think that's a really cool and important thing that there is a research center and a hospital, and even, for the dolphins. And I did do some of the dolphin research, and basically I thought the turtle one was cooler, let's just face it, so I'm not going to talk much about the dolphin one. But the dolphin one is really there to help, not save the species, but to make sure that dolphins are well cared for, that they clean the ocean. That's another big thing. They want to make sure there's no plastic. You don't want to hurt these animals. That's their home, not ours. Let's help take care of their home by not trashing it like some of us do in ours. Not that I do, but I've been to some people's homes, and Woo, okay. All right, side note, sorry about that. So the next set of keys we're going to talk about is Lower Key and Big Pine Key. And these keys are really where the keys kind of turn westerly. Westerly? That's a word. West, whatever. They go to the west into the Gulf of Mexico. And the keys in this section are home to a national marine sanctuary, 2 different wildlife refuges, a beautiful state park, and of course the amazing views. And I never say this right, so somebody's going to scream at their podcast how to say this, but the Bahia Honda State Park, and that's in this section of the Keys, and it's at mile marker 37, and it's actually often given the title of one of America's most beautiful beaches year after year after year, thanks to the beautiful crystal clear waters and the interesting views it's known for. Now, the park is known for its view of sandy white beaches, but it's also in the shadow of one of Flagler's railroad bridges. So if you've ever seen a picture of a railroad bridge or a random bridge next to a beach, that is probably this state park, which is kind of cool. You know, it's a different view. And the park allows you to enjoy Florida's nature. You can snorkel, camp, birdwatch, swim, and even stargaze on this beautiful tropical island. The park does have cabins for people to rent if true camping isn't for you. I'm not one of those people. I prefer a cabin over a tent. I get it if you are the same way. It's not quite glamping, but it's also not camping. And the park has trails that make it a great place to ride a bike, walk, or birdwatch, take pictures, take in the scenery, get a peace and quiet. And it's kind of cool because this park also allows you to go on a snorkeling tour. And you can see the beauty right off the shore of the Low Key National Marine Sanctuary. And that's right outside of this state park. So it kind of does, again, have something for everyone. That's why I didn't feature this one in any of my state park episodes yet, because I knew we would talk about it in the Keys because it deserves its own few minutes. Now, another cool part of this part of the Keys is Big Pine Key. And Big Pine Key is really cool because it is home to the National Key Deer Refuge. And these deer are a subspecies of the Virginia white-tailed deer and are pretty much the size of a big dog. They're so cute. The bucks only weigh about 80 pounds and the does only weigh about 65. So they're small deer and they are adorable. Now, this refuge was actually established in 1957 and they wanted to protect and preserve the key deer and, of course, the other local wildlife. Now, the refuge is about 9,200 acres of critical habitat that is home to hundreds of migratory and native species of these deer, birds, marsh rabbits, and silver rice rats. They actually have 17 federally listed species total that actually live in this 9,200 acre habitat. So they're doing a lot to preserve not only the habitat but the animals in it. And the refuge has done what it set out to do because in 1957 there was probably less than 30 key deer, and now there are almost 800 of these precious little deers. And if you ever get to see one, they are adorable. You just want to hug it. But of course you can't. Don't pet the wildlife. Don't feed the wildlife. But they are so cute. And that's just one of the many keys in that area that really goes out of its way to protect the species and the actual land for the keys. And of course, the lower keys are definitely a place for wildlife and nature lovers with no shortage of boat tours, sightseeing, eco tours, paddleboarding, kayaking, snorkeling, and camping. And that's all encouraged in this area. And I feel like the lower keys are much more nature centered than the upper keys or Key West, obviously. Nothing against Key West, but not as nature centered. Because the Great White Heron National Refuge is also in the lower keys. And there's tons of parks, museums, and they really focus on Florida's wildlife in this area. And I think that is really, really cool. I remember going to one state park in one of those keys. I just can't remember which one it is now. And the park, is on a section of the key, and you get to walk around the trails, and you could see massive birds, massive spiders, which I was not cool with and ran away. And you could walk around the open water part of like the lagoons and you could see sharks and lobsters, and it was just peace and quiet, and it was beautiful, and it kind of took you away from everything that was the craziness of Florida. And I really think it's great that they take the time to preserve that and to show you Florida is not just theme parks and crazy tourists and drunk people and white sandy or not so white sandy, depending on which side of the state you're on, beaches. And so that was really cool to get to take in. And I definitely recommend that if you ever go down to the Keys, or if you're even near a state park in Florida, take the time to walk around. You might see a really cool looking bird. You'll probably see an alligator. Don't touch it, pet it, feed it, or as the sign says, molest it in any way. You will not win that fight. If you do, I'm amazed. But take that time really to get out to that part of Florida and see, what Florida is really about beyond the beaches and the theme parks. And that's something I really promote in this podcast, to get out and to really enjoy the true parts of Florida. And now we're going to talk about the last part of the Keys, and that is, of course, Key West, and probably the most famous key in the Keys. The streets of Key West are lined with palm trees and beautiful old Florida homes, many mansions that the rich and famous lived in at one time. Of course, Hemingway lived there at one point. Him and his thousands of cats. If you ever go to Key West, please visit the Hemingway house. It's a beautiful place, and there's 6-toed kitties, which I'm sure you remember I talked about in another podcast. Had to revisit. And of course, this island city is where the Bahamian culture and the Cuban culture and other cultures really just influenced and met and created a really, really cool place. And of course, Jimmy Buffett's there. You've got the Conch Republic. Key West just really kind of does its own thing, and it's really a place that everybody kind of finds its own niche, and it's really, really cool. It has such a rich past, especially in salvaging with Mel Fisher and, of course, pirates that we talked about in the last episode. And, of course, the bars and Jimmy Buffett. And it's really kind of a place for the unwanted, the different, socially awkward, the people who feel that they're outcast. And it really is a place that they can go and they can feel accepted. And you can get away from everything that seems like it's the worst, or, this is the end of the world. And you can just take a moment and get away from it all. And that is really, really cool. And that's probably the reason I love Key West the most, is because I don't feel like anybody judges you when you're walking down Duval Street in Key West. I just don't. I feel like it's fantastic. Between all the fun parades and the girls with their boobs painted and nobody's wearing clothes and music is playing and drinks are flowing, and New Orleans has nothing on this place to me. It's definitely, if it's not for everybody, it is not for everybody, but it's a fun place. And by the way, there are chickens everywhere. Don't touch the chickens. Just don't do it. Off my rant now. So the island does have something for everybody, like museums. And, there's the Mel Fisher Museum, and it talks about the rich history by showing off Spanish galleons that were pulled from wreck sites. There are tons of art galleries in Key West to walk by. There's old cigar shops, of course, the bars, the live music. And there's even a cat haven that was disguised as a writer's home, such as Hemingway's house that I spoke about. And you really can find everything here. You can find sightseeing tours, diving tours, fishing tours, snorkeling tours, food tours, gallery tours. And there really is something for everybody packed into this one little island. The island is home to roaming chickens, cats, tourists, celebrities, and really anybody in between. You can get a picture at the end of US 1, which is the southernmost, that big buoy thing at the southernmost point. You can stroll down Duval Street to see any of the old houses and restaurants and bars. Of course, key lime pie. You must get a piece of key lime pie. Again, Mel Fisher's Treasure Museum is a great place to go. Or you can even just lay on the beach and enjoy the day. That's totally a thing to do there. Key West is really all about doing what you want to do. And I think it's a really cool place that everybody needs to visit at least once. Of course, I told you that Key West was the end of the most inhabited part. There is further in the Keys, and that is the Dry Tortugas. And the Dry Tortuga extends past Key West. It actually sits 70 miles west of Key West. And it is uninhabited except for Fort Jefferson. Fort Jefferson was a fort that we built, the U.S. built. It was supposed to be for the Civil War. It was supposed to be for another war. It was supposed to be for World War II. It kind of got thrown around, but it's still there today, and you can still visit it today. The park is only accessible by plane or boat. There is not a 70-mile bridge. Sorry. And the island is really known for the fort, but it also has beautiful clear waters that surround the island that are full of coral reefs, marine life, and birds that actually frequent the area. It's kind of on a... it's actually in the Great Florida Birding Trail, and that's a migratory path that birds travel, and you can see as many as 300 different species in a day. So if you're into bird watching, wildlife, and photography, definitely want to check this place out. The island is also known for snorkeling due to its clear waters, and most of the water around it is only 5 to 15 feet deep. So you definitely get to see the marine life and coral up close. Do not touch coral. Sorry, just needed to say that. You can actually camp on the island. That's a really cool thing. You can see the stars overhead. There's pretty much no artificial lights. So you can camp out with just the tropical breeze and the lapping waves to put you to sleep. The fort is open for tours if you're a history lover, which is totally cool. I actually want to go to this fort one day. It looks amazing. And you can see how the isolated fort played a part in the U.S. history that I mentioned a minute ago. And of course, the island is made up of beautiful beaches because it is an island. And there's actually beaches right outside the fort. And of course, the crystal clear waters and the white sand really do make up the part of the Fort Jefferson Dry Tortuga experience. And it really is its own tropical paradise. Now, you do have to make reservations to get there. There are a couple different ferries that will take you. But it is definitely worth visiting at least once because it truly is pretty much 95% of an untouched paradise. We'll just count that fort as 5%. So as you can see, guys, the Keys have a really rich history that allows you to see a real coral reef, follow the Florida Keys shipwreck trail, which is totally a thing because it goes over 9 historic shipwrecks and artificial reefs that extend from Key Largo all the way down to Key West. You can take in nature that's only found in this part of Florida, such as the key deer and certain birds and rats, if you're into rats. You can explore things on and off the island that really do make up the hidden Florida. Stargazing is actually an underrated thing, and I think it's a great thing to do in the Keys because it's not as populated as the rest of Florida, and there's not all those night lights. So you can look up, and you can see the moon and the stars and the planets, and it's just such a beautiful, peaceful moment. And the Keys have survived time and tide, hurricanes, climate changes, you name it, land booms, things like that, and they're still here. And they're an underrated and almost otherworldly part to itself. They're definitely different from the rest of Florida and something you definitely need to check out if you have the time or if you're just looking for somewhere new to go. And of course, while you're down there, you need to be on the lookout for wildlife, marine life, and of course, Florida's most invasive species, Florida man. And today's Florida man comes to us from March of 2020, so not too long ago. And they learned that Jurassic Park isn't real, but they learned it the hard way. This man was shot by a homeowner in Deltona after breaking in and believing that he was being chased by dinosaurs. He later admitted he had ingested some bad drugs and got shot for it. I'm telling you, y'all, just stay away from the drugs. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this trip through the Florida Keys. I will be talking more about Key West. Don't think I skipped it. It will probably come up. It will, not probably, but it will come up again. Key West just has so much to talk about that it definitely deserves its own episode. So please don't think I missed anything or skipped over anything. Thank you guys for listening. Again, if you have a second, please leave that review. I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much, you guys, for all of the participation on Facebook and Instagram. There are polls and questions weekly. Again, if you have any comments or suggestions or you just want to say hi, say hi. I answer back pretty quickly. I do hope that everybody has a great week. I hope that you're getting ready for the holidays. Please don't forget to wear sunscreen if you're somewhere warm. Please don't forget to bundle up if you're somewhere cold. Try to be nice to each other. We are in the holiday season, but be nice to each other anyways, guys. And as always, that's your daily dose of sunshine.